Cool. Sounds like all the tech's working.
Yeah, I'm glad I've worked it out. That's awesome.
Nice. How's boat life?
I mean, like everything, it has its ups and downs, but it's pretty good where we are right now. The anchorage is pretty calm and the internet connection is good. So that's the important bit for this conversation.
That's the main thing. Where are you guys at the moment? Where are you like anchored up?
Yeah, so we're anchored just outside of Cooktown, which is in northern Queensland. And we've been here for about 4 days. So we're just sailing up the Queensland coast.
Yeah, nice. And will the internet just get worse and worse as you go up north?
Sorry, say that again?
Will the internet just get worse and worse as you go up north?
Pretty much Telstra. Only this is the last place really that there is any coverage, all the way up to Thursday Island, which is on the very tip of Cape York. So yeah, this is pretty much going to be it for me.
Yeah. But how long? Like how long will it take you to go there?
It really depends. Like everything on a boat is really dictated by the weather. So it really does depend a lot on that. Anywhere from 3 weeks to 2 months. So we'll see
between 3 weeks and 2 months.
Yeah, we'll see. There's one place that we're going to stop that has Wi-Fi. So hopefully we're going to be able to connect there. But anyways, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, nice. So thank you for reaching out. It was really nice. You reached out about a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I haven't done one of these videos in ages, partly because people are not so keen to share their story. So I was when you actually messaged and said you were really keen to have a chat and do something. And I've been following your Instagram page since you started it. I think I was one of the not the original, but up there.
Up there, yeah. You're from the Facebook group, so that's where I've got a lot of the first followers. So
yeah, and you've been doing an amazing job of sharing your journey, which I think is really cool.
Thank you.
But it's nice that you're willing to do that, because I know for myself, I don't necessarily share a lot about my journey, partly because I don't really want people to know. So doing these videos at the start when I first started doing was like a big step in that direction. So I think it's really cool that you're really putting yourself out there and your content's really good. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. That actually means so much, and your encouragement and support and really does mean a lot, because obviously, yeah, it is a little bit of a new area, and obviously putting yourself out to the public on the internet especially you're setting yourself up for potential negativity or anything like that. So yeah, I've had a pretty positive experience so far, and I've really enjoyed doing it. Like this has become my passion and my drive, so I really have enjoyed creating Let's Heal IBD and just trying to tell as many people as I can about this therapy. I do want to start by saying, first of all, thank you very much for being interested in doing this interview and also taking the time out of your day. I know you're working, and I really appreciate you taking your time out of your day to have this interview with me and create content about this topic. I think it's so important.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I need to do a better job at that, and I probably dropped off the bandwagon a little bit. But like when you reached out, it kind of definitely fired that up a little bit again inside me. So like it is nice. And
yeah, that's awesome.
These conversations are amazing. And I think the more that this stuff is put out there, the better. The more that it's normalized, the better. And I think what you're doing is a really cool way to doing it. And I think it's probably one of the best ways to do it at the moment, because everyone's on Instagram, right? Everyone's on social media, and it's probably one of the best ways to actually reach people.
Totally. And that's actually essentially why I started the Let's Heal IBD actually before I even knew about helminths or Helminthic Therapy. I started it just looking for any sort of kind of solution, but I wasn't really getting anywhere. I was kind of into diets and everything. But when I started learning about the therapy I started by just doing a vlog every 3 weeks. I thought, this will be interesting, and if it works, it'll be really interesting to have this content. And then after the worms really started to help me, I really started to think I need to try my best to try and normalize this, because this has worked so well for me and can help so many people that if no one is going to talk about it and normalize it, then it's just never going to get the traction and the awareness that it really deserves.
100%. Like when I first heard about it, it was quite a while ago now. And I kind of kick myself in the butt when I think about it now, because if I had jumped on the bandwagon when I first heard about it, maybe I'd be in a better place now. But I spent the next 12, 18 months I pushed it away. I was like, this thing's not, what is this thing? It's crazy. Like, why would people do that? It's weird. It is weird, right?
It's weird.
And then, like, I wish I had pulled the trigger then rather than waited. And I think if there had been more visibility and content and more people that you're aware of, and it was just more mainstream, it might have made it a little bit easier to actually jump on board.
Totally. I think the more people you see doing it, hear about doing it, you think, okay, I'm not the only crazy person out there considering it. Other people who are normal have tried it. I could maybe do it. And that's kind of, I want to give people like the confidence and the knowledge about this therapy that, they can look into it themselves. And I had a similar experience to you. I heard about it just really briefly in a podcast I mentioned to you before, Samir Koker, Against the Grain, awesome podcast series. He had an episode on helminths, and I listened to it, and I don't even really honestly remember it. It just was one of the millions or hundreds of podcasts or content that I listened to about IBD. It never really stuck to me, and I'm not really sure why. Maybe because it was too out there. Maybe because it didn't seem accessible, like, how do you do that? There was nothing in the podcast episode about this actual steps that you need to take to start doing this therapy. And maybe if that had been more advertised and more readily available, the information would have been more useful for me, I think.
That's a fantastic point. That really is. Like, that's exactly my experience, and you articulated it perfectly, better than I could have done. And it, my one word on that is it felt black market feel. Kind of.
This is so dodgy.
Exactly. And if it was just like a different, if I'd heard about it in a different way, maybe I would pull the trigger.
Totally.
But I think that these, like, some of these points that you've raised, these are all things that we can touch on a little bit down the track. But before we kick off, I'm really keen just to hear about what it was like for you growing up and your experiences. And I guess the reason why I'm kind of interested in that is because, like, as we're talking about that, is there anything that happened in your childhood or any experiences that you had that it might have led you down the track where you ended up with IBD?
I can probably like pinpoint the exact moment I think I got IBD. I didn't really have any issues when I was young. It wasn't until I went to university and my life kind of completely changed. I obviously was in a more high stress environment. I had to look after myself for the first time. I didn't really have any experience cooking or anything like that. So I just ate McDonald's and Kraft dinner all the time. And I drank a lot of alcohol and I partied a lot. And it's just a very stressful time, and in my first year of university, I got very bad salmonella poisoning. I had like cross-contamination from raw chicken. And before that, I did not have Crohn's disease. I had maybe some occasional stomach issues, but nothing like after I got this salmonella poisoning. After that, I had Crohn's disease. I had dramatic weight loss. I just began to feel sick. Not necessarily as much at the beginning, but that was the trigger for me, was that salmonella poisoning. I am sure of it.
And how old were you when that happened?
I was 19, so I'm 33 now.
So that's when it all kicked off, you reckon?
Yeah.
And were you on a whole lot of antibiotics and everything else, or was it a matter of just riding it out and then for whatever reason that was it?
I actually don't remember 100%, and I do wish that I had a better memory about this. I'm sure that I would have been given antibiotics because I did go to the clinic. I went to the hospital because I was so unwell from the salmonella poisoning. I was very sick. And
like how sick are we talking? Like, were you
like vomiting uncontrollably? I lost like 8 pounds. I'm from Canada, so speak in pounds, with 3 kilos in like 24 hours. Like, I was hallucinating. I was very sick. So I could see how this could have an effect on your microbiome and effectively allow bad bacteria to overgrow and potentially spark off, be an environmental trigger for autoimmune disease, or part of that process.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that when I did go to the hospital, and I'm sure that they would have given me antibiotics, but I can't confirm that. But I do know that in my childhood and in my teen years and a young adult life, I have been given courses of antibiotics, but I cannot say for certain that is what triggered my Crohn's disease specifically. I think it's more related to the salmonella poisoning.
Yeah. Do you feel like it was yeah, do you feel like it was just that one thing, and then all of a sudden it just whatever something flipped in your body, and that was the start of your journey down Crohn's, or do you reckon it was a steady thing building up?
That's a really difficult question. I think that it probably was a little bit of a steady thing building up. Like Crohn's is a genetic condition, right?
Yep.
Quote unquote, it's a genetic condition. And then there's an environmental trigger that's supposed to spark it off, right? So I would think that maybe what happened to me is that through this stressful situation I was dealing with in my first year of university, my immune system is already run down. I'm making very bad dietary choices. So my microbiome is becoming less diverse because I'm not eating fruits and vegetables. I'm eating McDonald's and Dairy Queen and everything. So my gut biome is really becoming less diverse. I'm very stressed out. And then all of a sudden I get this salmonella, which is a bad bacteria, right? It's an unhealthy bacteria. And it's all about real estate in the gut biome, right? So if there's not a lot of good bacteria in there, maybe the salmonella bacteria just has the chance to overrun my gut. And if we talk about it in the context of Helminthic Therapy, then because I assumedly didn't have exposure to these worms at any point in my life, and I didn't at that point have them in my gut biome, there was nothing in my body to regulate my immune system. It just basically went out of control. And I think that the salmonella kind of sparked that off. And it may be, again, this is just total speculation, but it is something I've thought about. If I had had helminths in my body at that particular time, maybe I wouldn't have gotten Crohn's disease or gotten the same digestive issues to the same level that I did develop, because maybe the helminths would have helped to calm that reaction down.
Yeah, 100%. And that comes back to that whole old friends hypothesis, right? I think that for me, when I started reading about it a bit more, when I came across that idea, that hypothesis, that was kind of like the aha moment. I was like, okay, there's definitely something here. Like I need to look at this more. So yeah, that's a really interesting point.
Totally.
So after you had the salmonella, was the Crohn's disease? So you got better, and then you just started having issues straight away.
Yeah, so I was in uni. I was pretty busy, and obviously kind of ignored my health pretty much. But in second year of university, I lost like 30 pounds, like 14 kilos without any explanation at all. And all of my friends were like, what is going on? It was noticeable, very drastic. So obviously I went to the doctor and I was feeling okay, more or less. I had some stomach problems, but I was kind of getting used to it. And I went to the doctor, and anyways, they told me, they did no tests on me at all. Thank you, Canadian healthcare system. They just told me I have irritable bowel syndrome and to not eat the foods that hurt my stomach. And I thought, okay, well, I have no idea what hurts my stomach. I have no idea. So I just kind of ignored it and went about my life thinking, oh, I've got irritable bowel syndrome. But eventually it became obvious that it was something else other than that. But I just kind of assumed that what the doctor had told me was correct, and I just thought, I'm going to avoid the foods that hurt my stomach, but I wasn't really sure what they were. And it kind of did seem like all foods hurt my stomach.
So you're 20 at this point when you've gone to the doctor?
Yeah. I did go to the doctor sooner than that. Like, I think when I lost the weight, I guess I was around 20. Yeah. When I lost the weight, I went to the doctor. I was also having very bad hair loss as well. Wow. And I was freaking out about that. And so that also prompted me to go to the doctor, and they told me that it's related to malnutrition. And because I've gotten possibly like a imbalance in my gut from the salmonella and everything, that possibly this is what was causing my stomach upset. And it was all related to having irritable bowel syndrome. Again, they hadn't done any tests on me, which is shocking. If you know about the diagnostic procedure of Crohn's and colitis and everything, it's supposed to be an elimination, Anyways, I just kind of believed what my doctor said, I guess.
And then what happened from there? So you're 20, you've been told you got IBS, you've lost a shitload of weight. You're studying. I presume, are you still living like a little bit of party lifestyle and just kind of eating what you want, or is it?
Yeah. Yeah, like any good 20-year-old, I tried to ignore it just as much as I could. And honestly, I think that ignoring it is what led me to the situation I was in my late 20s and 30s, where Crohn's at the beginning, my Crohn's was really not that bad. Like, I lost weight in the second year, and then it kind of maybe leveled off a little bit. Like, I don't remember in my third and fourth year of university, my IBS or whatever my stomach issues were at that time really affecting my life that much, it wasn't until maybe 4 or 5 years later that I really started to get some stomach issues. But again, Crohn's is a chronic disease, so it does come in waves. So you can have periods of remission and flares. So even before I fully understood what was going on for me, I think I was well and then sick, and that kind of made it almost harder to pinpoint what was going on, you know?
So at what point during this period did you start dialing into things a little bit more, like looking at nutrition, health, all that kind of stuff?
Not for a while, I would say. I was in denial for a long time, especially because I didn't have like a proper diagnosis. I feel like it contributed to me also being in denial. So it wasn't until 2016. So I started having symptoms in 2010, and it wasn't until 2016 that I was diagnosed. And up until that point, properly diagnosed with a colonoscopy and blood tests and everything, diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And yeah, it's important also to mention that I haven't really had, I don't know how to say this, such a conventional life. I've traveled a lot, and that did make my diagnosis process and also treating my Crohn's disease a little bit more difficult. I haven't always had a consistent GP or doctor.
Mm-hmm. I know the feeling on that one.
Yeah.
So how old are you when it got officially diagnosed?
I was 24 or 25. 24. Yeah. And it had been getting, my digestive issues had been getting slowly and progressively worse up until this point. And what actually happened was I had very bad reactive arthritis in my ankles, which I had never had. My ankles swelled up twice the size to the point where I could not walk.
Wow.
And I was in so much pain. Obviously, I went to the hospital and they told me that I broke my ankles, but obviously I thought I would remember that. So anyways, eventually they took some blood work. They found I had high levels of inflammatory markers, CRP, in my blood, and high rates of infection, white blood cell count. That led them in combination. Thankfully, a doctor put it together in combination with my upset stomach that I was complaining about. They took a stool sample and found that my calprotectin was like through the roof, which is inflammatory markers in your stool sample. And that led them to think, okay, you have an inflammatory disease in your bowel. We need to do a colonoscopy. And a biopsy showed that I had Crohn's disease.
Right. And so like swollen ankles and joints, and that's all symptoms of Crohn's.
Totally. Yes, unfortunately. Wow, and it's actually a symptom that I've had quite commonly. I've had that happen to me maybe 6 times over the last 10 years, to the point where my mobility is actually affected. Specifically in my ankles, it seems to happen to me. Yeah, very frustrating and super painful as well, and not really a recognized side effect or symptom of Crohn's disease all the time.
Yeah, wow, I didn't know that. And how are you feeling at this point? Because like mid-20s, you're like meant to be at the prime of your life, you know, and you've got all this stuff happening. And this is something that I think a lot of people with autoimmune diseases suffer with, is that the quality of life changes. And for everyone it's different, right? And people have it a lot worse than some people, and some people have it better. But I think no matter what spectrum you're on, everyone that has an autoimmune disease has some hit to their perceived quality of life. So what was that like for you?
Totally.
You're going through this.
Well, when I first was diagnosed with Crohn's, my immediate feeling was relief, I guess, because I thought, okay, this makes more sense than IBS. This is a real diagnosis. They did tests. I feel like my symptoms are being validated. This is believable. And then I started looking into Crohn's, and I didn't feel so good about the diagnosis anymore. I'm reading words like surgery and incurable and lifelong and injection medications. And I'm thinking, oh no, like how is this going to affect my life, you know? And like I said, I was traveling at the time, and I'm thinking, seriously, what am I going to do? My partner's name is Ron. Ron and I were just about to buy our boat. We're going to go on this big trip. And the doctor literally told me, you cannot buy a boat and go sailing. You need to go back to Canada and get medical treatment. Like, you need to deal with this. And I was kind of young and dumb. And I also want to preface that I said to my doctor, like, what can I do in my own lifestyle to kind of like manage this, you know, because I've been basically not taking any medications. And the doctor, I did start to take medications. He started me on obviously a high dose of prednisolone, the steroid, to kind of calm down my symptoms immediately. And I also started taking azathioprine and Imurin as well.
Are they all immunosuppressants?
Yes, and yes, they are. Specific Crohn's and colitis medications, classified as entry level, because then the next level is biologics, the injection medications that you need to get every 6 weeks or 4 weeks or so. But you start with these entry level medications. So I started on those, and I asked my doctor what I could do in my own lifestyle. And I specifically remember the doctor saying to me, eat your cheeseburgers, eat your hamburgers. It doesn't matter what you eat. Crohn's is not affected by your diet. So I'm thinking to myself, well, okay, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing and live my life. And these medications are just going to make me feel better. And my life is going to be fine. That's the answer. But honestly, I held on to that advice that the doctor had given me to my own detriment, because I more or less continued to ignore my Crohn's disease diagnosis for the next year or so. And it just progressively got worse and worse.
So even on the medication, still got worse.
Yeah, prednisone did help. It did help calm the flare that I was in. I don't remember it putting me in remission per se, but it did help the immediacy of my symptoms, and my swelling in my ankles did go down and everything. But pred is not a medication you can be on long term. It's got very serious side effects, and I've already spent too much of my life on it. So it's definitely something you want to minimize if possible.
Yeah, and this is a common theme, right, across everyone that has autoimmunes. Is the messaging from GPs, doctors is the same thing. You don't have to worry about nutrition, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Totally.
So I can totally agree with that experience, and mine was exactly the same, and I think most people's probably is. Crazy. So after all this, and what happened next? Things are getting worse by the sounds of it.
Yes.
How bad did it get?
Again, Crohn's is a disease of remission and flares, so I did have periods where I was feeling better, and my partner and I did buy the yacht and we did go sailing. So for some of this time I'm feeling quite good and normal, but yeah, it did get to the point where in 2019, just as COVID was hitting, I got my first abscess, and that was not fun. I had to have emergency surgery. And anyways, it's such a long story, as everyone who has a chronic disease for so many years, I've had so many issues. I've had 3 abscesses. I've had a complex fistula that was 15 centimeters long. I've had severe malnutrition, and I had complete digestive breakdown to the point where for the 3 years before I started on the worms, I was not able to tolerate food pretty much at all. I was on meal replacement shakes, Absorb Plus. It's an awesome product for people in this situation, created by Jeannie Patel. But yeah, it's not a long-term solution. And the mental effects of being on meal replacement shakes for so long, I got most of my calories from this meal replacement shakes for 3 years. So
what exactly is in them, or what exactly are they?
It's like a protein shake kind of. I specifically used Absorb Plus because of the high quality of ingredients in it. There's no chemicals or preservatives. It's not like an Ensure drink, which I would not touch. It's a medication specifically for people with Crohn's disease in my situation, who need high levels of nutrition instantly into their bloodstream, because every single thing you tolerate goes straight through your body, which is the situation that I was in.
Jesus. So how long were you on this for? 3 years, did you say?
Yeah, so I did a full semi-elemental diet. So I drank only the shakes for 9 weeks, which is the protocol that you can do with them. And I did a 9-week semi-elemental shake diet, trying to get my Crohn's disease into remission. The theory is bowel rest. You're giving your body time to rest and heal in the absence of the need to digest, because you don't need to digest these shakes. They just go into your bloodstream. And they prevent you from losing weight, essentially, because they're high calorie too, right? Because I struggle to gain weight. Even now that I'm in remission, I'm still struggle a little bit to gain weight. But yeah, so they were not that fun to drink, and a little bit expensive as well. And the mental pressure or feeling of having to drink these in front of other people when you're not eating food is a big thing,
Yeah, well, that's the other thing that people forget, right? Like, again, it comes back to that point on quality of life. Like, your friends are going out for dinner on a Friday night and having a few drinks, and
Totally.
do you go along and drink your shake, or do you sit at home and feel a bit depressed? Like, it's a horrible feeling.
It's a horrible feeling. And then when you do go out, everyone's like, what's that? What's that? And I mean, most of my friends were super supportive, and they'd been there for me through the whole thing. So they were all supportive. They're shaking the shakes for me and being nice about it. But yeah, it's still not a fun feeling. And anyways, at the end of these 9 weeks of being on these shakes, I was better. But as soon as I started introducing food again, I mean, I was unwell again. Most of my symptoms came back. So I just kind of balanced eating what safe, tolerable foods I had.
And what were
then
they?
I would, it was limited, and it did change, but oversteamed carrots, oversteamed beetroot. Oh, I cannot stand beetroot. It's like a trauma food for me now.
PTSD.
Totally. Like just plain fish and chicken. Just I followed something called the IBD-AID diet, which is a diet set up for people with inflammatory bowel disease. It's a fiber-based diet. It's similar to the SCD diet. It's a modified SCD. So I followed that, and I just was in phase 1 for people in a severe flare.
Wow. And so after all that, so did this like continue for the next couple of years? You were just bouncing between certain foods and these shakes, and that was pretty much it for the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, pretty much. I did that for 3 years. And during those 3 years, I did also the 9-week fully on the shakes, but more or less I just like balanced between doing the shakes and eating food and just trying to like survive, I guess, is kind of the way. I'm working full time during this, and I have a pretty physical job. So I did struggle.
What were you doing?
I work on boats. So I was a deckhand on a boat, and like, the crew members that I worked with were amazing and so supportive, but it definitely was impossible for me to do my job sometimes.
How did you cope with that, if you don't mind me asking? Because I mean, I've not had any experiences like yours, but just with my own experiences, sometimes you just have these massive lows, right? Especially if you're going through a flare. Like, did you, because you're still in your 20s, right, when this was happening. So how did you cope? What did you do?
Well, I definitely wouldn't have been able to do it without my partner. Like, my partner is my rock, seriously. I remember when I had to go and get the surgery to get my second abscess removed, which is like, anyways, I 100% relied on him in these situations, in the lowest parts. I don't literally know how you could deal with this on your own. It's too much. It's too much for one person to even just clean up after themselves when you're that sick. You can't, let alone cook or work. And the mental toll as well. Like, if you don't have someone there sharing and almost like validating your experience, because Crohn's is invisible. If I were to present myself in a happy, healthy way, you might not know all of this stuff that's going on. So having someone there who's really like been through it with me like that made a really big difference. I 100% can thank my partner for that.
Did you ever feel like giving up?
Yeah. I mean, this is such a...
I know it's a little bit morbid and whatever, but like this, and the reason, I mean, I'll come back to this soon, but I think it's important, right? Because this is why the worms have been so important.
Totally.
So I want to touch on that.
Yeah, totally. I think it's a really powerful thing. I think the feeling of being like a confident, independent woman, like I want to call myself, and having this plan for your life, and then having every single thing dictated and destroyed by this curveball that you didn't see was going to happen, like that, it's super hard to live with. And I've definitely had points in my, multiple points in my life where I'm laying in bed thinking, fuck it, is this really worth it? Like, this is too much pain. This is like, I'm going to like maybe get emotional here, but this is like, it's too much pain to deal with for that long, like, it's one thing to be sick for a couple of weeks and okay, at the end of it, there's a light at the end of the tunnel because you're going to get better. But when you have something like Crohn's with no good solution, no good plan, no one telling you what to do or what you're doing wrong that's making you sick, because there's a lot of self-guilt as well. Like, every day you wake up and you think, what did I eat something wrong yesterday? Why am I feeling worse today? Like, you're always self-criticizing and self-examining, and it's not easy. And there's definitely been points in my life where I've thought, this is not worth it. Like, I I cannot live my life in this much pain. It's not worth it. And I'm sure lots of people in chronic pain have felt this way. It's not worth living a life of pain.
No, 100%. Yeah. This is why it's so important to have these conversations, right? Because there must be so many people out there that, whether they have Crohn's or not, or something else, it's hard.
Totally. It is.
Really.
And I think that, like, part of what I want to do with Let's Heal IBD is give people, I know the thousands of people out there in my situation, similar situation, where you are desperate. And I mean that in like the literal meaning of that word. You are desperate for some glimmer of hope, you know, that like, okay, my future, maybe I can be a bit better, you know, like maybe this isn't going to be my whole entire life. And with Let's Heal IBD, like I want to create that positive, hopeful feeling for people. I want to normalize using worms. I want to show people that if you're willing to look into the research of this therapy, this can really work for you. You know, this can really make a difference for people's lives who have inflammatory bowel disease. It's so powerful.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree anymore. So after these 3 years, and what, you're probably 30 roughly?
I'm 31 by this point, or yeah, about 31 by this point.
So is this the point where you start to come across helminths?
Yeah. So yeah, I did. It was around this point that I started to come across helminths, and it took me about 8 months till I was actually properly doing the therapy before, between learning about it and really starting it. So yeah, I heard about the therapy through someone else with inflammatory bowel disease. I basically was in this situation where I hadn't been in remission in definitely 3 years, but possibly up to 5, you know? And I am just so desperate. And I'm also like really proactive in my life. You know, I'm trying my best to eat. I only eat whole foods. I'm trying my best to eat a healthy diet that listens to my body. I'm doing yoga. I'm meditating. I'm being as proactive and doing all the healthy things that you're supposed to do to help you deal with a chronic illness. And I'm just getting nowhere, you know, or all I'm doing is not like, I don't know. I can't even say I'm not getting worse, because I was getting worse.
That's a scary thing. That's a scary thing.
Totally. Yeah. I was doing everything that you're supposed to do as a healthy alternative person looking into all these therapies, and I was still getting worse, you know? And as much as I wanted to believe, like, diet was not the answer for me, and it was not enough. It was not. And I think that for so long, I really was obsessed with the idea that there's something I'm eating that's causing my Crohn's disease. You know, like when I eat too many tomatoes, it makes my disease spark up or whatever. And I think almost holding on to that theory rather than focusing and shifting on biome depletion and my microbiome specifically, you know, because I would have thought, oh, I am targeting my microbiome. I'm eating all these prebiotic foods, you know. I was thinking about it on a microbiome level, but not in this way, you know, not when I know what I know now about biome depletion and the role that helminths play, and just how important it is to really repopulate the gut biome if you live in a modern society.
100%. So talk me through how it all kicked off with helminths, and how you learnt about it, and where you learnt about it, and when you first pulled the trigger.
Yeah, sure. So like I said, I heard about it from someone else. I posted on a Facebook group, on one of the Crohn support Facebook groups, just super desperate. Like, guys, these are all the things I'm trying. I don't know what to do. Does anyone have any suggestions? And I just promised myself, I was like, I am going to look into every single thing that someone advises me to. I made a commitment to myself. And so I got like 5 or 6 responses, and some of them didn't really make any sense. And like, I remember one of them was like, drink celery juice in the morning. And I'm thinking to myself, that doesn't make any sense. You know, a human out in nature isn't going to be able to drink a liter of celery juice in the morning. You know, that's just not. And I mean, maybe I don't fully understand the theory behind that. I'm not trying to necessarily discredit that theory specifically, but I'm just saying it didn't speak to me. And I'm reading through the 5 or 6 comments, and I read someone wrote Helminthic Therapy has changed my life or something. And I kind of Googled it, and I was like, worms? Like, my immediate reaction was like, worms? Ew, no, that is too weird for me. And I just immediately went on to the next comment. But at the end, there was only a couple suggestions there. And at the end, I was like, well, none of them
worms or celery.
Yeah. I was like, none of them really make sense to me, but maybe the worms do kind of make sense, you know? And then I kind of like gave it a second look, I guess. And I kind of went into it, and he added me to the Facebook group. And honestly, that from there, it was just my mindset completely changed.
So this is the Helminth Facebook group that's got about 8,500, 9,000 people. Yeah.
And honestly, credit to this Facebook group. It is a godsend to the autoimmune community. If you have autoimmune disease, join the Facebook group. It's the best place to start.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that links in the notes. But yeah, you're 100% right. Those people on there, some of the experienced ones, oh my God.
Yes.
Wow, incredible.
Seriously, even if you're not interested in therapy and you just want to learn about autoimmune disease, it's such a good place to learn and to read and just to become knowledgeable, and also learn about the community of self-treaters and the power behind this therapy, you know?
So you jump on the Facebook group and did you start posting some questions, or did you just start having a read through the comments and stuff? What did you do?
The first thing that I did was I used like the search feature at the top, and I searched for Crohn's disease, and I saw like some people who posted, oh, I'm like asking questions about it. And I did see some success stories, but overall in the support group, there aren't as many success stories as you would think, because a lot of people who have success stories just move on with their life, you know, and they just think, man, this is what I've been waiting for 10 years. And now I'm going to live my life, and good on them. You know, that's why the therapy exists. Right. But so I looked through and there is so many success stories, and that did like really start to spark my interest. And then obviously I looked at the wiki, and when I started to look at the specific research into why humans need to repopulate the gut biome because of biome depletion theory and hygiene hypothesis, and basically how modern society separates us from helminths and creates or increases our chances of autoimmune disease, it was like a eureka moment. I was like, this makes sense. Like I've always thought this, there's a reason that I have inflammatory bowel disease. It didn't just happen randomly, you know, like there's a reason I have it. And now I know that reason is because of biome depletion. Like I didn't have the right microbes in my body to prevent autoimmune disease from occurring.
Yeah, 100%. Did you feel, for me, when we like that eureka moment, it almost very similar approach to you in terms of reading studies, and it was that the old friends hypothesis and stuff that really hit me. But it was almost like a sense of relief, because there was this whole massive community of people and this proof and these examples of real life people doing this, and it felt like, oh, maybe there is a way out, because everyone had just been telling me once you've got an autoimmune, you've got an autoimmune. But maybe there was a way out. So yeah, how'd you feel? Did you just start going down a rabbit hole with it?
I actually remember I definitely did like a whole deep dive for like 48 hours. All I did was basically obsess and deep dive into the therapy. And yeah, like you said, it really gave me hope. Like I was pretty convinced right away. Maybe that's because I'm like a chronically positive person, and I've always kind of thought like there's a solution to this. I just need to find it, you know? But immediately I knew that this was going to be something I was going to try. I did a really big deep dive. I looked at all the YouTube videos that I could find. I read a lot of the research on the wiki. I read all of the personal stories, which are just like so mind-blowing, and people who seem like they're in situations like mine. I have Crohn's for 13 years and nothing else has helped me, and I want to use a natural approach that doesn't put me on long-term biologics. Like I want to have freedom in my life. And that was just all in the testimonials. You know, there are people who have had severe Crohn's for years and years and years, and suddenly they're better. And yeah, for me, it was like, whoa, this is my plan. This is what I'm going to do. You know, I finally have a plan for long-term health. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And it's funny, right? When you've been told again and again and again you can't do anything, and all of a sudden you have a plan, it's like
it's empowering.
You just feel 100 times better, eh? It's amazing.
It's empowering. And sorry, I just want to say, I think actually one of the first step was convincing me, which was fairly easy because I'm desperate and it kind of made sense. The second step was like convincing my support team, which is Ron and my mom. And that was a little bit more challenging, but they were still pretty receptive, you know? And I think once you look into like everyone's main concern should be safety, right? You don't want to put something in your body that you're not 100% confident in, or at least confident enough in that it's worth the risk. And when I started reading the safety profiles and people's testimonials that they don't really get any side effects, it just, my family was then convinced like there's basically no risk, really.
Yep.
It's very unlikely that you're going to, if you do follow the wiki's advice and use a therapeutic safe dose and start with a small dose and build up your tolerance and follow the protocols, it's really unlikely you're going to have adverse side effects that are, well, in my case, would have been worse than my symptoms I was already experiencing, you know?
I think that's a really, really good point to highlight. And I totally agree. That was my number one concern when I was doing all the reading was, is this actually safe? And I think that's a really good call out. Like, it is 100% safe. In fact, I don't really think there's been any examples of anyone getting in major trouble with it unless they take on a significantly increased dose compared to normal. And if you start small and you build it up, and it's really about patience, I think. Like, you start small and you just adapt into it, and it's going to take 6, 9, 12 months, sometimes up to 2 years.
Yeah.
But you do start seeing improvements along the way. And if you build up slowly, your body adapts, no issues.
Totally. And it's kind of like thinking about like microdosing a parasite, essentially, right? If you overload your body with parasites, of course, you're going to have some side effects, right? But if you microdose and then a little bit more later and a little bit more later, your body doesn't have the same worm flu side effects, right? And you can build up tolerance, and then the worms start to work with your immune system, your inflammation decreases, and your tolerance to the worms can be higher. And then hopefully your disease goes into remission, which is what happened with in my situation.
So talk me through how you did it. Like, and this is probably a really important part, because this is, like we were talking at the start, this is one of the things where it's sort of like, it feels like this black market thing, and it's, can you even get some, how the hell do you even do it? Like,
totally. Yeah.
What
how do you do it?
Yeah. Talk me through it.
Yeah. So I think it's important to start with, I live in Australia. So if you live in Australia, this product is available to you. I know it's also available in Canada, where I'm from. So yeah, the first thing I did was I went on the wiki and I read through the Facebook group. It's super important to do the research first. Like, as a self-treater, you are taking responsibility for your own health. You know, you need to know about the therapy before you do it. So first step is research. Second step for me, I started to look, like, once I decided I was going to do it, I guess the second step is to look into the providers. So you can go on the Helminthic Therapy wiki. There's a tab there that has the providers. All of the providers there are user reviewed and vetted by the editors. So there's no one there who is a spammer or has malicious intent. It's they're reliable sources. And I think that almost all of them, or all of them, have developed from the Helminthic Therapy group community. You know, they're self-treaters just like us who realize, hey, there is a benefit to providing this to the community, and it's a good business as well, I think.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I think that's a really good point to highlight, right? From what I understand as well, all of the suppliers are part of the community and are self-treaters as well. You know, people like me and you who have some benefit from it.
Totally. Yeah. I know that the supplier that I use, which is Au Naturel, they can be found on the wiki. I'm sure that they've started from the community and that they're self-treaters as well. So I think that's really important to know, that these people are just as passionate about this therapy as we are, you know, and they are self-treaters. They're people who benefited from it.
Yeah, 100%.
So I guess the next step, I guess, was I ordered NAs because I was a little bit nervous. I was debating between NAs and TSO. Those are the ones that are recommended for Crohn's disease on the wiki. Again, go and look to see the helminth that is recommended. And I decided to start with NA because TSO is a little bit expensive. And knowing what I know now, I regret this decision. I want to preface that with, I wish I had started with TSO, but that's not what happened. So I started with NA because I was worried about the financial commitment. I'm still thinking to myself, do I want to spend hundreds of dollars or a couple $100, you know? And NA is very affordable. So I purchased it. I paid through PayPal. So I went on the wiki. I looked at the supplier. I just picked one at random. Really, one that supplied NAs, which was Au Naturel. I sent them a email. They responded back pretty much right away, which is pretty much always been my experience when I email them. And I paid through PayPal. It was super easy. And then they sent it to me. And when I if you want to know the true story, when I arrived, I incorrectly inoculated for 6 months because yes, this is such a drama. But it delayed my results with the therapy for so long. And it's actually during that period when I had this mishap, I developed another abscess and just had to do another round of prednisolone on 60 milligrams. I was hospitalized for 6 days. Like, it was a major setback for me. And I realized it suddenly, basically what had happened, and I don't place blame on the supplier at all, but what had happened is when you, and this is important that everyone should know this, when you receive your dose of NAs, you should get a video that explains to you how to do it. And I did not receive this video, and he apologized to me and took ownership. And anyways, it was also my fault because I should have maybe realized that I was doing it incorrectly, but I just put the bandage on my arm, not knowing that I have to take the worms out and put them on the bandage.
Yeah, so 100%. And it feels at the start when you first do this, it's like some real weird science experiment, and you're sticking the stuff on your arm and like things are going into your body. But like generally my experience with it is when I've purchased it, it comes in and this might be the same for you, but it comes in yep. So you've got an example on your arm too, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
Recently inoculated?
I just inoculated a couple of days ago.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so that's 48 hours ago. I inoculated 20 NAs. It's my 5th dose. Woo!
Nice.
Yeah.
5th dose. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, is it similar for you? Mine turn up in like a small, tiny vial, and I normally have a little pipette and normally a bandage. And basically, like you're alluding to, you open the bandage up, you get the pipette out, and you pipette the liquid from the little vial onto the bandage. And then you get a little bit of water and you flush out the vial. So you make sure you pick all the NA. You do that again, and then you stick the bandage on the arm, right? Is that basically your experience, apart from the mishap?
Yeah. So after the mishap, once I did actually really start dosing, that is exactly what you do. You pipette the worms that are microscopic. If you look into the little vial, maybe like the first time I thought I could see like a little mark, but I mean, you can't see anything. They're so small. And yeah, you pipette them onto the bandage. It's clear. You don't see anything. Then you put some water onto it, and then you put the bandage on your arm. I leave it for 24 hours. And then, you take the bandage off, and you should have, but not in every case, you may have some marks on your arm similar to this. It just looks like a little bite mark from an insect, or like a small rash. So because I've done 20, I have a bigger rash because each one of those little red marks is where the worms entered my skin, actually. Yeah. So if you have...
What's your experience when you put the bandage on? Do you feel them?
Yeah,
it's quite weird, right?
It is weird, and this is actually how I knew when I when I had this mishap. When I did actually get the YouTube video, and I was like, "Oh, this is different. This is different than I had to do the other times." And I put it on my arm, and I'm laying in bed, and I said to my partner, "I was like, this feels different. This is not what it felt like the other times. I feel something crawling on my skin. I did not feel that before." So yeah, when you put it on your skin, it's not like gross or anything. It's almost like a little tickle on your hairs, I guess, like a little tickle. And it's kind of actually satisfying because then at least I know the worms survived transport. There are some there. Like, it's good to feel that, you know that there's a living thing in your package.
That's exactly how I feel. Yeah.
Totally. I like it.
Yeah, same. And it never, for me, the most recent ones, it's sort of, I stick the bandage on, and then I would say normally within 10 minutes, I will feel it. And then it maybe goes for anywhere between 10 to 20 minutes. And then it just sort of dissipates. And it still feels a little bit itchy and stuff, but I leave the bandage on for 12 hours overnight.
Yeah.
And then I take it off. And like you, generally I'll have a red mark on my arm, and then it'll just get redder and redder over the next couple of days, and it just disappears again.
Yeah. How many do you take, Ben?
At the moment, I'm trialing a different sort of protocol. I'm sort of doing a lower number but more frequently. So at the moment I'm doing like 10 to 12 every 6 weeks is sort of what I'm doing. But my biggest dose, so I started off when I first did it at 3, and then I just slowly went 3, 7, 10, 15, and then I think I went straight to 25 after that.
Yeah.
And then drop the doses back, but increase the frequency a little bit. So I'm sort of playing around with the dosage and the frequency to see what might work best for me. But again, this is probably a good point to highlight because everyone's different.
Totally.
timeline for success is different.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
there are stories in the wiki that you've already alluded to where people don't really see any improvement for up to 2 years. So
Totally.
and you've experienced quite rapid improvement, right?
Mm-hmm. I would say in comparison with some people who use this therapy, yeah, my success was fairly rapid. Like, and I also just want to go back to what you did say. I think it's super important for anyone who's looking into this therapy to realize that just because it worked this way for someone else with the same condition as you does not mean that that's how it's going to work for you. You need to be open to maybe it not working the first time you do it, or maybe you needing to change your dose or change the worm that you use. I think it's super important to really be aware that you are self-treating and you need to be responsible for your own self-treating. You know, you need to be writing down your doses and writing down your symptoms and making sure that you're flexible and open, like you're being, shortening your dosing period or changing your dose. It's super important. Or maybe even changing the type of worm that you're using, because sometimes it just doesn't work out the way that has worked for other people, you know?
And I'm really keen to touch on that, but just quickly, for people that do have Crohn's or a similar situation as you that might want to look into this a bit more, what's been your dosage and frequency over the last wee while? And how long have you been doing this? It's close to 12 months now, right?
So I started in June 2023. So it's right now September 2024. So it's been 1 year and September and 3 months, 15 months since I started. So for me, my timeline was I started with a bit higher of a dose than I would recommend. I started with 8 because I had this mishap and I actually meant to start with 3. But I started with 8 and then I went to 8, 10, 15. I did 2 doses of 15. And then the last 2 I've done 20 NAs. And at around month 5, I started also to add TSO into the mix. So you can combine species. It's definitely not recommended that you do that you start 2 species at once. You always start with 1 species. But yeah, I wish that I wish I had I wish I had started with TSO for a variety of reasons. It does work faster, and in the end I started using it anyways because honestly because it took so long for me to see results. It took 5 months for me to see any sort of benefit at all. And I was actually in the first couple of months, my IBD symptoms got a little bit worse, which is also not uncommon, especially if you start this therapy in a flare. It can temporarily increase the inflammation in your body. So I got a little bit worse first because I was in such a bad flare. And this made me, I have had very bad health anxiety in the past, specifically around developing another abscess in fistula, because a fistula is almost impossible to get rid of. It's so difficult to get rid of. So I had a lot of health anxiety around this. And I basically just added TSO because I was so scared that I was going to fail the NAs. And TSO has been almost researched a little bit more and does provide quicker results, although it provides the quickest results if you start TSO on its own without any other helminth in your system, which is what I wish I had done, because I maybe would have avoided all this drama and health anxiety that I was having, but that's what it is. So
it's interesting point. Do you feel like, what's your opinion on what's actually helped? Has it been a combination? Has it been one or the other? And if you had your time again and you started just with TSO, do you think you would have just stuck with TSO?
If I was going to start right from the beginning with all of the knowledge that I have right now, what I would probably do is start with TSO straight away, start with a lower dose and build up, and start with TSO until I was in remission, and possibly either continue to use TSO or NAs or another type of worm to maintain remission, because TSO can be a little bit expensive, but people can also do maintenance doses, with something I don't have personal experience with because I'm still taking my full dose of TSO, which is 2,500. So this is such a difficult question. I've been asked this before. I honestly think that if I had not added TSO, I still would have gotten the same benefits from the NAs. And I think that because when I ordered the TSO, it took a couple of weeks to get here. And during those couple of weeks, I got so much better. And this is before I added the TSO. My food intolerances went away, almost immediately and suddenly. I was not able to eat anything. And then suddenly I could eat the foods that were making me sick, the first thing I noticed was the foods that were making me sick, like even my safe foods are making me feel unwell, right? So they stopped hurting my stomach and I'm eating my first pain-free meals. And this did happen before I added the TSO. So I do think that if I had just been patient, which is so hard to do when you're unwell, and this therapy takes so long, it's so hard to be patient. But if I'd just been patient, I do think that NAs probably would have worked for me and probably would have put me into remission. But I don't know.
Do you think you will slowly step down the TSO to the point where you tried to just go with NA, or are you quite happy to stay where it is at the moment? Because this is it, right? You're in this perfect position where you've got remission, and it's like I don't want to change anything.
I know.
In case something comes back.
I know. Honestly, if I had my dream world, I would just continue exactly how I am right now, because yeah, I think anyone who's had the experiences as of me would think this. Like, after you've been so sick for so long, there's so much like trauma and fear and anxiety around that. Like, I do not want to feel sick again. I can't, like it cannot happen for me. I need to do everything in my power to be sure that that doesn't happen. And so I guess in my dream world, I would just like to take a small dose of TSO and maintain remission that way. Because NAs are more susceptible to being injured or killed or stunned, I think is the word that they use, by certain foods like coconut products or manuka honey or some herbs, and I really, in my dream world, I'm talking, just want to be able to eat whatever the heck I want, because I spent so long being so limited. And if I want to have a chicken curry, I want to be able to have that, which totally sounds a little bit entitled compared to what I was eating a year ago. But so in my dream world, I would just use TSO in a small dose just to maintain my remission, because it isn't as affected. It's more resilient. And because you redose, because it's a non-human hookworm, you have to keep redosing. And so it's not as affected by what you eat. It's pretty much, there's not that many foods that actually affect it. So maybe that's what I would like to do. If that would maintain my remission, I would be happy to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And no, that's a fair point.
I am going to try tomorrow to lower my dose, and I will be showing what happens to me when I lower my dose on my Instagram page, so people can actually see what it's like,
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think just a point on a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, throwing like acronyms around like NA and TSO, all that sort of stuff. All of this is on the wiki, and it's really, really clearly laid out.
Totally.
The members who have been around a long time have done an incredible job of like putting this information into an easy and great format to understand and read. So it's all there. Just quickly, I might have missed it before, but what's your frequency for dosing?
So right now I'm using 20 NAs every 3 months, and I use 2,500 TSO every 2 weeks. And that has put me in remission, into clinical remission. So that's amazing. And symptom remission. I do still have some symptoms. I want to be perfectly transparent. I would say I would probably have about 90% reduction in my IBD symptoms from where I was a year ago, which for me is more than enough. I can live a normal life. Yeah. So that's really all I care about. But yeah, that dose has put me into remission. So
you said a key word there, clinical remission. So did you actually go back to the doctors and you actually had like some full tests and stuff again to actually see if all your biomarkers and stuff were more normalized?
Yeah. So I haven't had a colonoscopy, but I have had, for a couple of reasons, I have had a blood test done and a stool sample done, and they both confirmed my inflammatory markers were well within the normal range. My calprotectin was a 16. It's been like over 1,000 before, and under 50 is within the normal healthy range. But a lot of people are under 200, even people who don't have inflammatory bowel disease, because we eat such an inflammatory diet, So those two things, my doctor said the words, "You are in clinical remission." So
wow. And did they ask why or how or?
I mean, my GP honestly just kind of brushed it off. She was not really interested.
Really?
It was like, it's the standard GP appointment. I'm there for 15 minutes. She gives me my results and she goes, "Oh yeah, okay." She just kind of like, I told her that I was doing the therapy and she hadn't heard of it or anything, and which is understandable. But yeah, when I showed her like this, I've been in a flare for over 3 years and she knew this, and yeah, she kind of brushed it off. She really wasn't interested. So
wow. That's crazy. Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah.
And you raised a good point on that as well. Did you, when you started all this therapy and you started inoculating for the first time, did you talk to your GP about it, or did you just pull the trigger and go?
So I just decided for myself, to be honest. I'm a little like, I haven't had a very good experience with my GI doctors, my gastrointestinal specialist. I haven't had a very good experience. I've actually had my GI doctor in Canada actually refused to continue having me as a patient because I wouldn't take biological medications. Literally refused to see me anymore.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't even know that was really a thing.
I don't know if it's a thing, but that happened to me in Canada. Literally mind-blowing. A gastroenterologist specialist. So anyways, like I'm not saying this is good or anything, but I'm generally distrustful. I wasn't looking for my doctor's approval at all.
Yeah.
I can make my own decisions about my health, and I understand my body. And honestly, I think I understand this disease much better than the average doctor. I'm not saying I have as a level of a medical understanding, but I've experienced it, and I've done so much research, and there's no way that a doctor could spend this much of their life and devote it into researching into this topic, pretty much.
That's 100%. And this is what blows my mind about the wiki and the Facebook group. And hopefully anyone that ever watches this will go and have a look, because some of the knowledge from the members on the groups is absolutely mind-blowing.
Totally.
Just a wealth of knowledge, right? It's incredible.
Yes, totally. And I said this to you yesterday on a message, like John Scott specifically, everyone involved in the wiki, but John Scott specifically is like our gift, is the gift to the autoimmune community. Like, he is such a blessing. And honestly, I don't know if I wouldn't be here in this capacity if it wasn't for him and the wiki and the other leaders on the Facebook group. Like, this information has saved my life without a doubt. It saved my life. Whether that's because I would not be alive without it through complications of the disease, because I've had 2 near-death experiences from Crohn's disease, or because of unaliving yourself from all of this horrible things that happen to you while dealing with the disease, or just not even being able to be present in your life when you have such a horrible chronic disease. This information and these people who've taken their time out of their lives to give this information to other people, it has changed my life for sure. And that's like, I feel now I could not take these worms, go into remission, and just move on with my life. Like, I could not, I would just feel so guilty for the rest of my life thinking about all of these people, especially young people who have no idea that this therapy exists, and they're being told by their doctors that they have to get literal organs cut out of their bodies, when really all you have to do is put a bloody bandage on your arm every 3 months.
Yeah, that's literally it, right? That's literally it. That's literally it. Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree. Yeah, I can't really echo your words anymore than that. Yeah, 100%. So you kind of touched on it, but what's your life like now?
Much better. It's actually like, this sounds so bizarre because it hasn't even been that long that I've been in remission, but it's almost hard to like remember what it's like. It's like your body naturally wants to be so healthy. And this is like a human being's natural state, that as soon as you're gone out of that horrible chronic health situation, you're like, whew, this is how I'm supposed to feel. It's so easy just to move on almost. Like, I mean, like symptom wise, I feel pretty good. I said I had 90% reduction in my symptoms. I don't have any blood in my stools. I don't have any pain or urgency like I used to. I used to also get a lot of vomiting. Like, I would vomit 2 or 3 times a week from Crohn's, and I haven't puked since like April. Wow. Yeah. And I vomited weekly for years. So, wow. And that's horrible. And you get trauma from that and everything, it's a horrible feeling. You become really afraid of food. And that's one thing I'm still working on. I definitely still have some food aversion, because I've spent so long really just hating eating, it's almost like an eating disorder, kind of like the mental toll that it plays on you, this like food fear that you have, where it's like, even if the food is healthy and good for you, you're like, oh, is it gonna hurt me? Is it gonna fuck me up? Like, I don't want to risk that, So
what do you eat now? What's your diet like now?
That's a good question. I definitely think that, like you mentioned, I definitely think that part of the reason that I had such quick and rapid and success with this therapy is definitely because of partly how I eat. I eat an anti-inflammatory diet. I only eat whole healthy foods like pretty much 100% of the time. And that is something that I share on my Instagram page a lot, is that like I eat for my microbiome. I eat fruits and vegetables. I eat and make my own fermented foods. Like I really am proactive about what I eat, but I still do eat dairy-free. I eat gluten-free, and I definitely don't eat any refined sugars. I eat like 98% of the time whole healthy food.
Have you tried going back to something like dairy? Have you tried any of those little things, like a little bit of gluten or?
Well, I mean, my partner doesn't eat gluten-free, so I'm definitely not as careful as I was. You know, before I wouldn't even let like our toast be in the same toast or anything like that. And I'm definitely less careful than I was, but I haven't tried to reintroduce any foods because my remission is still relatively new. I'm still only about 4 months into remission, and I'm just honestly so scared. And like compared to what I was eating, oh my gosh, I have so much freedom. Like I don't even really care. Like when you say to someone, oh, I eat dairy-free, gluten-free, refined, sugar-free, you think, oh, that's so restricted. But to me, I'm like, that's it. That's all I have to cut out. I can eat fruits and vegetables and meat and rice and corn and like all of those things. I couldn't eat any of that before. So I'm really happy with how my diet is now. I do think in the future, I would like to reintroduce gluten, especially organic wheat. I don't want to eat any glyphosate, but I am interested in how, I don't necessarily think eating gluten-free is healthy just because you need to eat, if you don't have a gluten intolerance, you know, maybe I would add some dairy. I'm not so sure if that's something I'm so interested in, but gluten, I would definitely like to add back in.
And what about meat? Was meat ever an issue? Obviously it was to a certain extent, but
I mean, yeah, like you said, at one point all foods were an issue, but meat has always been something I could tolerate more than other foods. And like, I even hate saying this because I feel like I'm more naturally inclined to a more like vegetarian mindset. I don't love eating huge amounts of meat, but when I was sick, like I needed to eat meat, obviously, because I need the calories and the protein and the energy, you know, and that's how I felt at least. So yeah, I eat meat now. I really only eat chicken, fish, and kangaroo. Yeah, because it's really high in iron and it doesn't have a really strong or harsh environmental toll like beef does. I do eat some beef as well, but in general, that's what I eat. And I try to only eat meat like once a day. I don't eat too much meat because I do think that it takes up space for the prebiotic foods like fruits, vegetables, that kind of thing.
Where to from here?
Oh, telling everyone about it.
So what platforms have you got? You've got your Instagram page, obviously.
Yeah.
Is that the primary stuff where you spend most of the time putting up all this information?
Yeah, like I feel like for me, like I think the Facebook group is the best community and support out there because there's just so many people in it. You can ask questions more so than on Instagram, and it's just such a great group. But for someone like me in their 30s, like I don't really go on Facebook that much, you know, unless I'm specifically going to check the Facebook groups or something. It's if I'm scrolling on the internet, I'm spending my time on Instagram. So that is where I post most of my content. I try to post because I'm really trying to promote this therapy and really just get the word out. Like I want to be the fangirl of worms, you know, like I just want to tell everyone who's suffering about this. So I try to post 5 reels a week, and I post to my Instagram story every single day. And I really, really enjoy it. It feels like I'm really giving back to the community that I know needs the information. And it's been fairly well received. I mean, I don't have very many followers or anything, but the feedback that I have been getting from people is super positive. And I've had some people reach out to me and be like, this is the information I've been looking for. Like, thank you. And I can direct them to the wiki, and I feel like I've done my bit, you know?
Well, that's it. If you're just making a difference for one person, and you point them in the right direction, I mean,
totally.
That's pretty amazing. Yeah.
Totally. Well, that's what you're doing with these videos too, right, Ben? Like your YouTube is such a good format. And honestly, it's better for explaining this therapy because this isn't something that you can get or understand in a 6-second Instagram reel, you know, like it's complex and people's stories are so multi-level, and YouTube is such a good platform for this because it's long form content. And that's really, I feel like, is the best way to explain this therapy.
Yeah, I think I could do a better job of this, but I think the reason why I initially wanted to do this way back was because the one thing that made the difference for me, on pulling the trigger and trying to do this was people's stories. Like
Totally.
like you, I spent a lot of time not just reading about my condition, but all the different conditions. And like there's stories on there on the wiki with that people have written in on, and it's for almost every single autoimmune condition you could think of.
Totally.
That have helped. And that was the point, right? And it was just reading their stories and reading the stories from how hard their lives were to the point of where they managed to, in most cases, put their condition into remission, as you've talked about. And those were the stories that kind of pushed me over the line, right? It was hearing this.
Totally.
So
I also think it's important to think, like what you said, like there's so many different types of autoimmune diseases that can be helped by this, but that is a clue that this therapy is for real, because autoimmune disease is really the same disease, just manifesting different places in your body. If you have MS, it manifests in your nerves. If you have arthritis, it manifests in your joints. If you have inflammatory bowel disease, it manifests in your gut. So doesn't it make sense that there is one or a one related underlying root cause, and that is biome depletion, which is lack of helminths in the gut biome through our lack of exposure to Mother Nature, pretty much.
100%. And you just like you articulate that so well. You should copy paste that little bit and put that on your Instagram, because that was like the perfect little articulation.
Maybe I will. Yeah.
Really good. Kyla, like I think like we can wrap this up, and I just thank you so much for jumping on, and thank you so much for everything you're doing on the Instagram. I know we said it at the start, but it's really, I think personally, it's really important that you can see a face to all of this stuff, and you're really putting yourself out there. And I have no doubt that more and more people will jump on the bandwagon when they see your stuff. And I mean, I follow it and I enjoy it. And I'm just, it's really, really nice that there's people like you out there that are really, really driving this. And
thank you.
Also, like, it just supports the community, like you were saying. So, like, thank you for making the effort.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And honestly, like, if I wasn't getting good feedback and support, it would definitely make it seem like I'm talking to a brick wall. But I think people are ready for this information, and I can see that, like, people are ready for this. And I hope and feel like taking this therapy to Instagram maybe, or to just social media in general, is hopefully going to take it to the next level, like get people really talking about it in a way that people talk about other things on social media, like just normalize it to the point where people don't go, oh, worms. And they go, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's what I want.
I mean, and I think you are making a perfect example of that with your Insta. And like, it's just going to take time, right? People will slowly come around, and the more and more people you reach, the more and more people will come around. So please don't stop doing what you're doing, because it is really cool.
Thank you so much. And don't stop doing what you're doing. Like, thank you for any amount of content that you can contribute to this space. So don't feel pressure or anything. Like, it's so important, anything that's created, whether it's perfect or anything, like, it's just good if people Google it, that there's something there.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I agree. Anyway, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Take care, and don't stop posting.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I'm really, really good chatting with you, and have a good day. Talk to you later.
You too. See ya. Bye.
Bye.